What's up guys? First of all, an apology for the lack of videos recently. I picked up Black Ops 2, so I've been playing a lot of that, and so far I've been pretty impressed. It's probably the best Call of Duty I've played since Call of Duty 4, which is definitely good because the last Black Ops was a bit of a disappointment actually. But Black Ops 2 is a definite improvement. Anyway, the video I've got for you today is a video that is based upon the storyline so far in Black Ops 2 of Tranzit and Nuketown. Now, there's this widely held belief within the community of zombies that Nuketown holds some sort of massive Easter egg to explain all of Tranzit, which is sort of true. Basically, what I mean by that is that everyone's looking for this sort of physical Easter egg in Nuketown, some explanation, some way to open the fallout shelter, when really the Easter egg is Nuketown itself. I think it's well established by now that Nuketown is sort of prequel to Tranzit. We can tell that because obviously in Tranzit the zombies' eyes are blue straight from the start, whereas in Nuketown they turn blue because Nuketown happens at the same time as the Easter egg in Moon. Which leads us to the question of when does Tranzit occur? Now, it's believed that Tranzit occurs between 1986 and 1991 because of various things in the map such as Malton's calculator watch, references to Chernobyl and the USSR quality mark found on the crate underneath town. This time frame is based upon the fact that the USSR state quality marks were established in 1967 and then swapped out in 1991. Now this thing alone sort of gives us this timeline of when Green Run could occur. However, it is possible that the crates are just under there, left over from any point after the swapping out of the quality mark, or they could have been left there from prior to the establishment of the quality mark. But I don't think that would be possible, seeing as the location of Green Run is within the Hanford site. The Hanford site being a mostly decommissioned, as of now, nuclear production complex on the Columbia River in the US state of Washington. Now this in itself begs the question, what are the survivors doing in a decommissioned nuclear production complex? Because obviously nobody lives there because it's a complex owned by the United States federal government. So there are no residential areas, it's just a production complex where they would make the plutonium to put in the first nuclear bombs which were tested at the Trinity site. And they also made the plutonium that was put in the Fat Man nuke which was dropped over Nagasaki to end World War II. However, I'm sort of dragging myself off topic here, so I'm going to go back to the timeline of when Green Run occurs. We've been over the USSR state mark, and that bit is a bit hazy, but it gives us a general time frame of when it could occur. Now, the second part that I mentioned was the references to Chernobyl, which means that the map could occur after 1986. However, I would not believe that Green Run occurs in 1986 or past 1986, because even though this general theme of nuclear topics is prevalent throughout Nuketown and throughout Green Run, I don't see any logical reason why the US federal government would put any reference to Chernobyl in an American-based nuclear production facility. It just doesn't make any sense. It's probably put there by Treyarch to keep us on the theme of a nuclear basis for the map and to sort of hint at where I'm going with this theory, which I'll explain after I've explained about Malton's calculator watch. Malton's calculator watch is sort of a smaller part in this theory because obviously he's wearing a calculator watch on his wrist, and those were not actually produced and sold to the public until after 1975. But I think that's kind of irrelevant because Malton clearly knows more than he's letting on, and I'll explain why now, because this all links together into my personal theory of when Tranzit occurs. I believe that Tranzit actually occurs between a smaller time frame than I earlier presented. I believe that it occurs somewhere between the 1960s and the 1970s. A lot of people seem to think that it actually occurs in maybe 2025-ish, or, as I said earlier, around the 1980s, which I also don't believe, because if we go to Nuketown and we knife this bunker that just everyone seems obsessed with, and the reason I think they're obsessed with it is just quickly going off on this tangent again, is that since the introduction of these large Easter eggs in Ascension, everyone just believes that anything sort of interesting in the map is going to be some part of some massive Easter egg, and it's just another example of the community looking into things far too much, which, even though I do it myself, it annoys me when I do it, it annoys me when other people do it, because it's just there, it goes through the theme of the map. Nobody questioned it in Black Ops 1, like, why is this fallout shelter here, because we knew why it was there. And again, in Black Ops 2, in Nuketown Zombies, we know why it's there, it's just that people are now thinking that it could be part of this Easter egg, and it's just, as I said before, another example of the community looking into something far too much. Anyway, little rant aside, we know that Nuketown occurs at the same time as Moon, because we can hear, obviously, the radio Easter eggs of Richtofen and the original survivors doing things on Moon, and eventually switching souls in the MPD, and as he switches souls, I think it's around 25, you can see the zombie's eyes change, which signifies that the Easter egg in Moon has been completed, and that Richtofen is now in control of the zombies. However, when we knife the fallout shelter, we can hear that Martin is in the shelter talking to whoever's in there with him, which is a whole different topic that I don't want to talk about yet, because I'm not very informed about it, and I will make a future video on it, but that's when I'll actually be speaking with some degree of education about the subject, and not just talking like without any knowledge. However, if Green Run occurs sometime between 1975 and 1991, as indicated by certain members of the community, the question is, how would Martin have got to Nuketown? Now, I have a theory that Martin actually, within the fallout shelter, has realised that he can't escape through the door of the fallout shelter as the missile falls from Moon. Obviously he hears that, panics, and continues through maybe an escape hatch in the fallout shelter, which then continues to the Hanford site, which makes a lot of sense. They wouldn't commute these highly poisonous chemicals just across main country roads. They would transport them between the Hanford site, where they produce the plutonium, and the test site directly. So it makes sense that obviously there is some sort of passage between Hanford on Green Run and Nuketown in Transit. I think as well, going off on another tangent, that the bus sound that we hear in Nuketown is another reference to Transit. It's not any Easter egg or anything, it's just a reference. So Martin would have panicked when he heard the second nuke drop and realised that obviously there isn't another nuke to be tested because the first one's already been dropped. So he would have panicked and he would have continued across this transportation link between Nuketown and between Green Run. So he would have got there, and we know there's this transportation system because in the tunnel, which is between the bus depot and the diner, we can see in the gaps in the tunnel that there is obviously some sort of guidance system or shelter or something like that, and that is obviously the transport link between Nuketown and Green Run. And then he would have ended up coming out at the bus depot in Green Run, where we assume that he would have met the other survivors. However, if Nuketown occurs, say, at the earliest post-1975, Martin would have had to wait a minimum of 5 years within that tunnel, which doesn't really make any sense, because obviously he would have been given provisions, because this is based upon the theory that Martin also had something to do with the Trinity tests. He was a scientist, a professor, whatever. He was definitely at Nuketown for the reason that he was working on the Trinity test. That has been pretty much established. That is the only reason he would be there. He wouldn't have got trapped there or anything, because obviously it's a nuclear test site for the government and you can't just walk in. So he would have walked through these tunnels and escaped to Green Run, where obviously the destruction would have been bad from the second missile sent from Moon, but not as bad as the actual site of the explosion, which obviously is Nuketown itself. Now, he would have had to live a minimum of 5 years within the tunnel, because say for argument's sake that Nuketown occurs at the very latest, late 1969, then there's no actual way that Martin would have survived 5 years within those tunnels with only basic rations. He would have had to either eat whoever was in the Nuketown shelter with him, which is viable because obviously nobody else has come from the Trinity site with Martin, so he could have always killed the guy in the shelter with him or waited for him to die and then ate him. which would only have lasted him, say, at best, a week or two. Nowhere near long enough to survive within the tunnels for 5 years. So for that reason, I would assume that unless there's some sort of time travel involved, that transit on Green Run has to occur at least between the end of the 1960s and the start of the 1970s, because there is no way that Martin could have survived even a year within the tunnels, let alone at minimum 5 years. So I feel that sort of gives us this good basis of a theory that Green Run actually occurs within the 1960s, maybe at best a week after the Nuketown incident and the Moon Easter egg. Anyway, that concludes my video today, guys. I hope you've actually learnt something from this, because I definitely have. I've definitely learnt a lot about government testing and stuff, which is always quite fun. Anyway, I'll be coming up with another video soon about Martin again and such. So, thank you for watching and take care.